The email popped up at 2:30 a.m. The plane's lights dimmed, and the bright lights of Rio de Janeiro faded below. The subject line read, "Termination notice, immediate effect." For a few seconds, I just stared. I blinked, thinking my screen was glitching, but it wasn't. It was all there, clear as day. My name, my job, and the words that made my heart sink. Your job with Apex Solutions has ended. Right now, your access is gone. Do not come back to any company property. No call, no meeting, no thank you. Just this cold, final message. It was from Mr. Harrison, the CEO himself, the man who had shaken my hand just 2 weeks ago and said, "Julie, you're the only one I trust to get this done." I looked around the plane. Everyone else was asleep, tucked into their comfy seats. I was alone with the soft hum of the engines and a silence that felt louder than anything. 10 days, 3 cities, Sydney for the first talks, Paris for the legal stuff, and Rio for the final agreement. I didn't just help with this deal, I built it. 3 big global companies, all moving to Apex's cloud system, a $1.5 billion deal over 5 years. And now, I didn't even work there. A cold feeling spread in my chest. Not anger yet, just shock. It felt like someone had pulled the ground from under me while I was still walking. I kept staring at my laptop for a whole minute. Then, without a sound, I pulled out a second laptop from under my seat. It was dark, plain, and secret. No one at Apex knew about it. I opened it, logged in, and watched the screen light up. I smiled. They thought this was the end of my path. They had no idea I had started a new one 3 weeks earlier. I was standing in that same glass-walled meeting room on the 32nd floor. I watched grown men panic over a failing $400 million contract. The client, a tough European group, had walked out of talks. The legal team was freaking out. The money people were blaming each other. And the head of sales almost cried. I didn't wait to be asked. I just walked in, picked up the abandoned papers, rewrote the main parts in 20 minutes, and asked for a private call with the client's main person. By the next morning, the deal was not only saved, but it also included 2 new areas. That wasn't my first miracle for Apex. It was just the most recent one. After we won, there was a champagne toast in the fancy lounge. People clapped. Mr. Harrison gave one of his fake smiles and said, "Now that's the kind of leadership we need at the next level." Someone even whispered about a promotion in the hallway chatter. Executive Vice President, Global Strategy. The title sounded silly, too big, and long overdue. Because I wasn't just someone who closed deals. I was the one who fixed things. The one they called when the men in suits couldn't finish the job. I had talked with huge energy companies, phone networks, and foreign governments. I spoke 4 languages, carried 2 phones, and lived out of airports for 7 years. I made Apex look much stronger than it was. And still, the title never came. A week after the champagne, I was told the promotion was in progress, then under review, then nothing. At first, I thought I was just worried. Maybe they were changing things. Maybe HR was slow. Maybe, for once, it wasn't personal. Then I heard it. It was during a lunch with the board. I was in the next meeting room getting papers ready. The sliding door was left a little open. "Oh, come on," one board member chuckled. "Julie is brilliant, but let's be honest. She walks into a room and no other guy wants to speak. She takes over every presentation." Another replied, "Yeah, she's not really EVP material. She's more field operations." Field ops. Like I was just a fancy negotiator they could fly around and then forget about. That moment stayed with me longer than the missed promotion, because the truth was clear. They didn't want to promote me. They wanted to keep me small. Too confident, too good, too many wins that couldn't be given to someone else. I was the one they called when deals needed saving, but never the one they wanted at the table when praise was given out. I stood there in that empty meeting room, holding the papers I'd spent weeks creating, and I realized something hard but true. It wasn't about being good at my job. It was about how much of a threat they saw me as. The quiet ones got promoted. The strong ones, especially those like me, got pushed aside. And yet, I didn't storm out. I didn't make a scene. I went back to my desk, booked 3 international flights back to back, and started working on the biggest deal in the company's history. Because if they wouldn't give me the title, I'd create my own. It's funny how betrayal rarely comes with a loud crash. Sometimes it slowly drips in, unnoticed at first, until you're standing in a room ankle-deep in water, wondering when it started. A year ago, Sarah Harrison was in trouble. She had just been hired at Apex as a strategic advisor, a vague title given because of her family, Mr. Harrison's daughter. She had no real tech skills, barely 2 years of work experience, and one very big mistake: an unauthorized data transfer during a client demo that accidentally showed private information from a test partner in Singapore. It should have been a public scandal. The legal team panicked. The marketing department froze. And Mr. Harrison, he called me. "Clean it up quietly," he said on the phone. She didn't mean to. She just didn't know. I didn't argue. I used every contact I had, worked day and night to stop the leak, and turned the story into a beta testing glitch that never got past small tech blogs. I even took the media calls myself so her name wouldn't appear in any news. No one thanked me. I didn't ask for it. I told myself it was loyalty, that protecting the company meant protecting everyone in it, even the CEO's daughter. But loyalty starts to rot when it's not given back. 3 days before my trip across continents, I opened a shared folder to finish our presentation materials for the Trident deal. These were the slides I'd been perfecting for weeks. Charts, data, the plan's structure, all laid out perfectly. There they were, just as I'd left them, except for one thing. The document details listed the author as Sarah Harrison. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she had downloaded them and accidentally saved over them. But as I clicked through the slides, I saw she had made small changes, rephrasing points, adjusting the layout a bit, but keeping my entire structure. The core was mine, the presentation was mine, but the name on it wasn't. She hadn't even bothered to tell me. That night, I sat in my apartment with the city lights outside my window. I stared at the slides until the words blurred. And then I did something I wasn't proud of. I closed it. I didn't confront her. I didn't message Mr. Harrison. I didn't tell anyone, because deep down, I already knew what would happen. They'd call it collaboration. They'd say I was imagining things. Worse, they'd think I was being possessive or emotional. That word always came up when a woman questioned power. So I said nothing. I packed my bags, I finalized my flight routes, and I told myself it didn't matter. But it did, because the hurt wasn't loud. It didn't explode. It slowly seeped in every time someone praised her strategic clarity. Every time I sat in a meeting and watched her say my words as if they were hers. I had protected her, covered for her, saved her reputation, and now she was erasing mine. I've never been one to panic, not when deals fall apart, not when executives lose it in meeting rooms, and certainly not when my own future starts to shake beneath my feet. So when I realized the promotion wasn't coming, when I saw Sarah's name on my slides and felt the weight of being erased, I didn't yell, I didn't storm out. I changed direction quietly, smartly. The truth was, I had already started building my escape 6 months earlier. Not because I expected betrayal, but because experience had taught me power respects leverage, not loyalty. Apex didn't always look like this. When I joined, it was small, still trying to reach mid-level status, full of smart people and real goals. Over time, as investors poured in and office politics grew, the company's heart changed. Mr. Harrison stopped hiring the best people and started promoting the safest. The innovation team was cut, rules were used as weapons, and anyone with new ideas was slowly pushed out. Many of those people were my friends, some were mentors. All of them, like me, had quietly kept building, just no longer for Apex. I called the project Vanguard. No fancy presentations, no big launch party, just a name, a legal setup, and a growing team of former engineers, product planners, and compliance experts who understood the pain of being left behind by the very system they helped create. Every part of Vanguard was made to fix the exact things Apex had broken. Speed instead of slow rules, openness instead of control, and, most importantly, putting the client first. We didn't announce it. We didn't need to. It wasn't a revenge company. It was a future waiting to happen. Still, I kept it quiet. I was still under contract, still earning their trust, and I had no plan to burn any bridges unless someone else lit the match first. That moment came sooner than I expected. It was during a long dinner in Rio, sitting across from Mr. Costa, the CEO of Brazil Link, one of the 3 old companies in the Trident deal. We had just finished our 3rd round of proposal tweaks, and he was sipping whiskey, his tie loose, the stress of billion-dollar decisions off his shoulders for a moment. He looked at me, serious and quiet, and asked a question I wasn't ready for. What would it take for you to lead instead of follow? I paused. Your fork stopped halfway to your mouth, he continued. You don't talk like an employee. You talk like someone who built something from the ground up. So why aren't you running the company? I laughed softly. Because someone else inherited it, I said. He smiled, but didn't laugh. But if you ever decide to change that, call me. Some of us prefer to support leaders, not just company names. That moment stayed with me. Not because it was flattering, though it was, but because it showed everything I'd been trying to ignore. Clients could feel it. They felt the gap between the person doing the work and the people taking the credit. They saw the same things I did, the political promotions, the weak innovation, the strange silences after good results, and they were watching me, waiting. When I returned to New York, I didn't tell anyone what Mr. Costa had said. I didn't tell them about the quiet calls I'd started getting from Tel Global's buying director or the subtle questions from Eurocom's legal team about different partnership ideas. But I did expand Vanguard's plan. I set up quiet meetings with my core group, former legal head Maria Sanchez, systems expert Ben Carter, and ex-finance planner Emily Chen. We didn't use company emails, we didn't meet in offices. We met in apartments over dinner, on secure channels. Every piece was falling into place. Apex thought I was their deal closer, but I had already started something they couldn't see. A company that didn't need to close deals with power, but with purpose. If anyone had walked into the fancy ballroom without knowing the background, they would have thought it was a crowning. Gold tablecloths, crystal lights, a live band. The company had spent a lot of money on the Strategic Growth Gala, which was really a party for Sarah Harrison's sudden promotion to Vice President of International Strategy. The irony was hard to accept. I had built that department from nothing, literally, when it was just me working from 3 time zones out of a suitcase, trying to convince European partners that Apex wasn't just another tech company that promised too much. Back when the idea of international strategy was seen as too ambitious for a mid-level company barely holding its own at home, I had made that path with hard work, late-night flights, and knowing all the tech terms. And now I was standing under a chandelier, smiling through gritted teeth, holding a champagne glass I hadn't sipped from, pretending to toast the woman who had taken my title, my team, and my story. Sarah was glowing, of course. Blonde hair, sleek navy dress, talking points perfectly practiced. She clinked glasses with board members and used big words like multi-country integration and cross-border scaling while the PR team took pictures. "Thank you all," she said, lifting her glass. "It's an honor to take on this role and continue the strategic vision our company has started." I stood behind her, half in the light, half in the shadow. No mention of my name. Not a single word about the deals I had just closed in Sydney or the negotiation plans I had written. Maria Sanchez, my former legal partner, and now secretly one of Vanguard's founding team, brushed past and whispered behind her glass, "This is surreal." Surreal was a kind word. People I had worked with for years now avoided eye contact. A few of the nicer ones offered awkward half smiles, the kind that said, "I know this is wrong, but I also want to keep my job." Mr. Harrison took the microphone near the end, still tall, still smug in his perfect suit. He had the kind of voice that could make a room full of doubters believe him. "We've watched Sarah grow into this role," he began, "and I can think of no one better to lead our most important project yet, our global expansion through the Trident Partnership." I froze. The room clapped. Then he turned slightly and added, "And she'll be shadowing Julie on the upcoming trip as part of that transition." Shadowing me? As if I was a mentor? As if I had agreed to train the woman who'd taken the title meant for me in a department I'd built on a deal I was about to close after 10 months of hard work across time zones? I felt my stomach twist. I wanted to laugh or scream or throw my champagne into the ice sculpture shaped like a globe. Instead, I nodded. I even managed to smile, practiced and sharp. People clapped again, and I pretended the sound wasn't nails against glass inside my head. But inside, humiliation burned like acid under my skin. Not because they replaced me, but because they expected me to help her do it gracefully, quietly, like a good soldier who knew when to disappear. I took a slow breath and sipped the champagne for the first time. It was flat. Sarah turned and leaned in, all warmth and fake sincerity. "I hope we'll have time to talk through the Rio structure before the meetings. I'm still trying to catch up on some of the European details." "You should," I said calmly. "They tend to ask tough questions." "Oh," she giggled. "Well, I'll just point them to you. You always know what to say." I smiled. The kind of smile that comes right before the drawbridge lifts, because I already knew she wouldn't be going. They didn't know it yet, but I'd already booked a second travel plan, one that didn't include her or Mr. Harrison or anyone from the company that had just buried my name under a job title with a fresh coat of paint. By the time I landed in Sydney, I hadn't slept well in 4 days. The gala, the fake congratulations, Sarah's smug request to go over the Rio plan, Mr. Harrison's backhanded announcement, all of it had worn me down. But none of that mattered now, because what waited on the other side of each customs gate was something much bigger than my hurt feelings. The Trident deal. 3 old telecom companies, Tel Global in Sydney, Eurocom in Paris, and BrazilLink in Rio, joining forces in a historic move to the cloud. It had taken me 10 months of quiet introductions, understanding different cultures, and building trust to get them to the table. Now I had 10 days to close it. 3 cities, 3 continents, no room for mistakes. In Sydney, the tension hit right away. Tel Global's tech head, Kenji Tanaka, was sharp, doubtful, and direct. "You promise security, so do your competitors. Why should we believe you offer more than words?" He asked this before the tea even arrived. I pulled up the encryption details I designed with Apex's engineers, a document the board hadn't even seen yet. I walked him through the exact rules we'd customized for multi-country compliance. Real-time backups, zero-trust system. When I finished, he didn't smile. He simply nodded. "I see why they send you," he said. "The others, they speak, but they do not understand." After the meeting, we walked briefly to his car. I paused, then asked softly, "And if there were a simpler way, same technology, but fewer steps between need and delivery?" Kenji turned his head. "You mean less Apex?" "Something like that." He didn't answer, but when he got into the car, he looked back and said, "Send the materials again, privately." In Paris, Eurocom's legal team was more tired. The new rules after the global trade shifts had made compliance a nightmare, and Apex's standard contract language was full of unclear parts. I'd pointed it out before. They hadn't fixed it, so I fixed it myself. At 11:40 that night, sitting in a tiny apartment I'd rented for 2 nights, I rewrote the terms using my own templates, ones we developed quietly through Vanguard's team, Maria Sanchez. The next morning, I handed the updated drafts across the shiny table at Eurocom's main office. The main lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Laura White, raised an eyebrow. "This isn't the Apex standard," she said. "It's the one that works," I replied, "unless you prefer a 3-week delay and 50 changes." She quickly read the top page. "You did this." "Yes, off the record." Laura smiled. "Well, maybe next time we talk, you'll be sitting on this side of the table." I felt something spark inside me. She wasn't just impressed. She was suggesting something, wondering aloud why I wasn't already the one leading the company I claimed to represent, and she wasn't the only one. By the time I landed in Rio, I was running on coffee and pure will. The Brazil meeting was the last part. Money structure, how to share income, data ownership, all the problems in one room. And worse, Sarah was supposed to be there, supposed to shadow me. She didn't come. I knew she wouldn't. I had changed the travel plan last minute, routing myself through Argentina, making sure no internal team could track my movements in real time. Apex thought I was flying in a day later. I was already there, already working. The meeting with CEO Mr. Costa lasted 4 hours. He questioned me deeply on risks, money exposure, and long-term support plans. When I stood firm on the numbers the board had fought me on, he finally leaned back and sighed. "I trust you, Julie," he said, tapping the table. "But I don't trust Apex. You know that, right?" "I do. So if this falls apart later, it won't." He looked at me carefully. "Unless you leave." That's when I leaned in. "And if there were a way," I said, keeping my voice low, "for you to get this deal without that risk, without the politics, the noise, the problems, would you be open?" Mr. Costa didn't blink. You know the answer to that. 3 cities, 3 meetings, 3 quiet seeds planted, and in each one the same pattern: doubt toward Apex, trust toward me. Not the company name, me. I carried the weight of the company across continents, across time zones, through exhaustion. I answered questions before they were asked, rewrote contracts on my own time, and stood between billion-dollar doubts and billion-dollar agreements. But I wasn't just closing a deal, I was opening a door. The cabin lights dimmed just as we crossed the equator. I had been staring out the window, the vast darkness below, stretching endlessly. When I opened my laptop to review the Rio meeting notes one more time, the contract summary was perfect. The numbers matched, the client was in, the deal was done. It should have been the proudest moment of my career. Instead, the screen flickered. The company server kicked me out. I tried again. Access denied. I clicked into our chat system. Session expired. My company calendar disappeared. My email went blank. Then an email. Subject: termination notification, immediate effect. Sender: Mr. Harrison. I read the first line and my chest tightened like a vice. "Julie, effective immediately. Your job with Apex Solutions is terminated. All login details and access have been taken away as per HR rules. Please do not contact any company clients or partners going forward." No greeting, no thanks, no explanation. Just a knife, slipped quietly between the ribs, 35,000 feet in the air. For a moment, I sat completely still. The flight attendants moved quietly down the aisle, collecting half-empty wine glasses. Around me, the other business travelers slept under blankets, completely unaware. My laptop screen flickered again, this time going black. They'd locked me out of everything. I reached for my phone. Same result. VPN blocked. Login invalid. Even my company contacts list was gone. They had erased me. No warning, no meeting, no chance to explain my role. This wasn't just changing things. This was an execution. And the insult cut deeper than the decision itself. They didn't even wait until I landed. They didn't have the decency to look me in the eye. They fired me in silence while I was mid-air, alone, after closing the biggest deal in company history. I should have felt rage, and maybe in some distant part of my gut, I did. But mostly I felt insulted. Not because they let me go, but because they thought I was easily replaced, powerless. They fired me like someone who hadn't just carried their entire international growth plan on her back. They thought cutting access would cut control. They thought that taking away my email would take away my influence. They thought I had no backup. They were wrong. 6 weeks earlier, long before Mr. Harrison's quiet power plays, before Sarah's fake promotion, I'd followed the rules and started a private backup of my Trident deal notes. The legal team had approved it as a safety measure, standard for high-risk deals done across borders and languages. I had it all: the presentations, contract versions, financial models, call notes, even handwritten client feedback. They said I had no right to talk to clients. They forgot I was the only reason those clients were still talking to them at all. I reached under the seat, pulled out the dark laptop I never connected to Apex systems, and placed it on the tray table. It hummed softly to life, encrypted, offline, untouchable. The wallpaper glowed in the dark cabin light, a simple, half-finished logo: Vanguard. I opened the encrypted folder. Everything was there. Each market plan, every detail in every version of every contract, safe, legal, mine. The anger finally sparked, but not as a destructive fire, as strong determination. Mr. Harrison hadn't just fired me, he'd freed me. They thought cutting me loose mid-air would break me, but all it did was cut the rope holding me back. I opened a new document, placed my hands on the keyboard, and typed 3 simple words: "Let's begin." Then I closed the lid and leaned back. Outside the window, the sky was still pitch black, but for the first time in months, I saw a clear horizon. The city looked the same. From the back seat of the taxi, I watched the skyline pass. Steel and glass buildings soaking in the late morning sun, yellow cabs weaving in and out, people rushing with coffees and phones as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had shifted. It was 8:40 when we pulled up to the Apex headquarters. I paused before getting out, staring at the building I'd entered almost every day for the last 9 years. It looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just seeing it differently now. Less as home, more as a place that never truly belonged to me. As I stepped into the marble lobby, the security guard, David, who used to wave me in with a grin, froze. "Miss Miller," he said, shifting awkwardly, I wasn't told you'd be coming in today." "I wasn't told I wouldn't be," I said calmly, holding up my badge. I pressed it against the gate. Nothing. Red light. Access denied. David winced. "I'm really sorry. It's just HR flagged the system this morning." I nodded. I didn't argue. It wasn't his fault. He looked more uncomfortable than I did. But as I stood there, half in and half out of the place I had given the best years of my life to, a strange feeling washed over me. Not rage, not sadness, just a sense of being out of place, like I was a ghost haunting a life that no longer existed. I waited for the elevator anyway. The receptionist didn't greet me. She barely looked up. Someone else had taken my name off the board outside the 27th floor meeting room. The digital display now read, "Strategic Integration VP, S. Harrison." By the time I reached my old floor, the silence felt sharp. Every familiar face seemed to avoid eye contact. The junior analysts who used to greet me with eager updates stared into screens. One even stood up and quietly walked toward the break room the moment I stepped out of the elevator. No welcome, no question, no curiosity. My desk was already empty. The plants I'd kept alive through jet lag and budget cuts were gone. The framed client thank you letter from Eurocom vanished. Even my chair had been replaced with a newer one, the tag still hanging from the back. I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty surface where my entire professional identity had once lived. My nameplate had been removed. Not moved, removed. On a table nearby, I spotted a copy of the internal newsletter. The headline read, "Sarah Harrison to lead Trident Partnership in Global Expansion Push." I picked it up and quickly read the article. Following Julie Miller's transition out of the company, VP Sarah Harrison will take full control of the Trident client integration strategy. Transition, a clean word for what had happened. No mention of the woman who had built the deal, flown across 3 continents to negotiate it, or personally saved 2 of the 3 contracts from falling apart. I dropped the newsletter into the trash. Then I left. Back on the street, the city felt louder than before, the car horns sharper, the air colder. People rushed past, and none of them knew or cared that I had just been erased. I walked a few blocks to the old hotel I used to use between international flights. They knew me there, No one asked questions. They gave me a room on the 15th floor overlooking the river. I closed the curtains, took off my shoes, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to feel it. The empty space. Not sadness, not defeat, but the realization that the place I had poured myself into had never truly seen me. They had used my brain, my voice, my presence, and now, with the swipe of a key card and a press release, I had been deleted like a line in an old spreadsheet. But I wasn't broken. I was free. I pulled out my laptop, not the one they shut down, the other one, the dark, powerful machine that still held the future I had started designing in secret. I opened the secure client portal Maria and Ben had helped build. The encryption was perfect, clean, ready. I clicked open the contact list. Mr. Costa, Kenji Tanaka, Laura White. And then, without hesitation, I sent 3 emails. Each one had only 4 words. The door is open. The morning after I sent the 3 emails, I sat in silence with a black coffee, a croissant I had no appetite for, and my laptop open beside me. The room was quiet. No celebration, no champagne, no overflowing inbox. Just stillness. But not the stillness of nothingness. The stillness before the change, like the sky before a storm. I knew what would be happening back at Apex. Mr. Harrison would have walked into the Monday morning executive meeting already on edge. Maybe his assistant would have handed him a printed update about the Trident accounts. Except this time, there would be no progress, no eager messages from the clients, no check-in notes from my side, because I was no longer on their side, and neither, it seemed, were the clients. I dropped the newsletter into the trash. Then I left. Back on the street, the city felt louder than before, the car horns sharper, the air colder. People rushed past, and none of them knew or cared that I had just been erased. I walked a few blocks to the old hotel I used to use between international flights. They knew me there. No one asked questions. They gave me a room on the 15th floor overlooking the river. I closed the curtains, took off my shoes, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to feel it. The empty space. Not sadness, not defeat, but the realization that the place I had poured myself into had never truly seen me. They had used my brain, my voice, my presence, and now, with the swipe of a key card and a press release, I had been deleted like a line in an old spreadsheet. But I wasn't broken. I was free. I pulled out my laptop, not the one they shut down, the other one, the dark, powerful machine that still held the future I had started designing in secret. I opened the secure client portal Maria and Ben had helped build. The encryption was perfect, clean, ready. I clicked open the contact list, Mr. Costa, Kenji Tanaka, Laura White. And then, without hesitation, I sent 3 emails. Each one had only 4 words. The door is open. According to Mariah, who still had friends in legal, Mr. Harrison placed the first call to Kenji Tanaka at 9:15 a.m. No answer. He tried again 20 minutes later. Nothing. By 10 a.m., he brought in Sarah and the temporary strategy team. They tried Eurocom next. Laura White had always been quick to respond, direct, efficient, the kind of person who replies to emails within the hour and doesn't like delays. That morning, the line rang 7 times before going to voicemail. At 10:40 a.m., a follow-up email was sent to her office address, a second to her legal team. Both bounced back. Out of office, please direct all Trident-related questions to your current point of contact. Except they didn't know who that was anymore. By 11:30 a.m., the panic had set in. They called Brazil Link. Mr. Costa's assistant answered and said he was unavailable. Unavailable today? Mr. Harrison asked. No, she replied calmly. Unavailable for Apex. He didn't know what to say. He demanded an explanation, but none came. Instead, the line went dead. Back in my hotel suite, I quietly refreshed the client dashboard. Vanguard's new portal, built with Ben's design, tracked every client interaction in secure logs. It wasn't just smart, it was invisible. No public launch, no flashy announcement, just clean, secure, human-first onboarding. All 3 clients had signed into the system within an hour after my message. Each of them had scheduled exploratory sessions with the Vanguard team. Nothing dramatic, just quiet steps toward change. It was all happening without noise, without confrontation, no lawsuits, no threats, just silence. The kind that speaks volumes. The kind of silence that tells you everything you need to know about who still controls the conversation and who has lost it completely. Apex wasn't being attacked, it was being ignored. And for a company like that, silence wasn't absence. It was a judgment. Around 1 p.m., Mr. Harrison tried one last move. He had someone from investor relations reach out to all 3 client firms publicly, framing it as an update and asking for joint press statements to confirm Apex's continued leadership on the Trident project. Only one of them replied. It was a short message, no greeting, no signature. Apex no longer speaks for us. You do. I stared at the words on my screen for a long time. They were simple, unpolished, but they held more weight than any title Apex had ever given me. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I stood and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window. The city pulsed beneath me, unaware of the quiet unraveling taking place 32 floors above where I used to sit. The place that fired me without a voice was now losing deals in a language they no longer understood. Not loud, not public, just gone. Mariah called that evening. "They're scrambling," she said. "Sarah's panicking. Mr. Harrison thinks you're behind it all, but no one can prove anything. The clients won't return any of their calls." "They don't need to," I replied. "Are you sure you don't want to, make a statement, go public?" I looked at the glowing monitor at the new Vanguard homepage Ben had just published. It didn't say my name anywhere. No founder section, no about me, just the logo, a line of code in the footer, and a promise. What we build belongs to those who build it. "No," I said softly. "Let them sit in the silence a while longer. Because this wasn't revenge. This was clarity, delivered without noise. And it was only just beginning." At 9:30 a.m., the press release went live. No flashing banners, no launch event, no breathless social media posts, just a simple, elegant announcement published directly through Vanguard's media portal, distributed quietly, purposefully, and irreversibly. Vanguard Inc. is proud to announce a multi-continent strategic partnership with Tel Global, Eurocom, and BrazilLink Inc. The agreement, valued at $1.5 billion over 7 years, will deliver secure, flexible cloud integration across 3 regions, redefining global business connectivity. For media inquiries, please contact press@vanguard.tech. Signed, Julie Miller, CEO. That was it. No mention of Apex, no fanfare. Just precision and presence. The email started trickling in by 10 a.m., not from my former colleagues, but from journalists, analysts, investors, people who had never heard the name Vanguard before this morning, people who now wanted to know how a company with no website until last week had just pulled off the most seamless acquisition of 3 old clients in one go. By 10:45 a.m., the first news article went live, then 2 more, then 6. By 11:15 a.m., TechWatch Global posted a headline that made me lean back in my chair, take a slow sip of tea, and smile. The silent takeover. Who is Vanguard, and why is everyone at Apex panicking? Back inside Apex's glass tower, silence turned to chaos. Sarah had locked herself in the conference room with 3 of the junior communications managers, her voice rising just barely through the soundproof walls. Maria had sent me a text from legal. They're trying to write a counterstatement. Mr. Harrison wants to blame external sabotage. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say, nothing to argue. Mr. Harrison hadn't been sabotaged. He had simply been outsmarted. The thing about building power quietly is that no one sees it coming until it's already done. They don't know where it started or how far it spread. They just know suddenly they're not in control anymore. That was the difference between noise and clarity. Apex had noise. I had clarity. By 12:20 p.m., Financial Chronicle called the move the boldest silent shift in business tech since the Altivix's change in 2011. By 1:15 p.m., Vanguard's inbox had over 70 partnership requests and investor meeting invitations, none of which we accepted. Not yet. Not until the foundation was fully secure. Meanwhile, the clients, Kenji, Laura, Mr. Costa, stayed completely silent. Not one press quote, not one explanatory social media post. They had no reason to explain. They had simply chosen differently, and they had chosen me. Ben walked into the hotel suite around 2 p.m. with a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne and a printed copy of the press release, like we were old-school startup founders. "You gonna frame this?" he asked, grinning. "I might tattoo it instead," I replied. He handed me a manila folder. Also, financials. They're already transferring money to the accounts. Maria triple-checked everything, no hang-ups. I nodded and exhaled. Not with relief, but with understanding. This wasn't luck. This was planned. Every move had been on purpose, every conversation planted, every client cared for. I hadn't taken Apex's clients. I had earned their trust while Apex was too busy promoting power games and empty titles. Later that evening, I got a short voicemail from a number I recognized but hadn't saved, Mr. Harrison. I played it once, then deleted it before it finished. He didn't yell, he didn't beg. He just asked the same question they all ask when they finally realize what they've lost. Was this personal? Of course it was. It was also professional. It was smart. It was overdue. I stood by the window that night overlooking the city. The skyline no longer felt cold. It felt earned. They had taken everything with noise. I had taken everything back in silence. No announcement, no speech of revenge, just a name on a page. Julie Miller, CEO. And the world watching. Not because I demanded it, but because the results spoke louder than anything I could have said. The conference room at the Global Tech Summit in Berlin was lined with deep blue velvet curtains and polished glass tables. Luxury hiding desperation. At 9 a.m., Mr. Harrison stood at the front of room C214 with his newest temporary strategy lead and two compliance managers in stiff suits. The buzz outside was loud. Apex had leaked news of a breakthrough partnership with a rising Eastern European cloud company, hoping to show recovery after the Vanguard collapse had shaken investor confidence. Only insiders knew the truth. This was not a breakthrough. It was a last chance, and it was already falling apart. I watched from the back corner as they began setting up the projection screen. My entrance wasn't announced. I didn't need it to be. I had timed it for precision, not a show. Mr. Harrison paced as he spoke softly with the potential partner's CEO, a broad-shouldered man named Ivan Petrov. I had met him once before in Prague over a long dinner where we shared ideas on secure cloud hosting. He didn't remember me yet, but he would. At 9:15 a.m., I stepped forward, calm, collected, wearing a slate gray blazer, a simple dress underneath, and confidence in every step. Ivan looked up and blinked. "Julie?" Mr. Harrison turned. The color left his face so fast I thought he might faint. I walked to the table and extended a hand toward Ivan. "It's good to see you again." Ivan took it with a firm grip, confused but interested. "You're here with—" "I represent Vanguard," I said, "and I'm the other party in this negotiation." Silence spread through the room like a dropped glass. Mr. Harrison's jaw tightened. "This is a closed session, Julie." "No," I said evenly. "This is a joint session. Vanguard was invited after your company submitted two conflicting statements about global rollout capabilities. The summit organizers requested transparency, full partner agreement." Ivan nodded slowly, the pieces connecting in real time. I opened my folder and laid out Vanguard's infrastructure map, clean, updated, made for Ivan's company's regional expansion plan. Our model was simpler, faster, tested. His tech head had already approved the details privately. "Pending this final review, I understand your position, Ivan, but we can't afford another problem after what happened with Trident." Mr. Harrison cut in. "That was sabotage." I didn't flinch. "That was foresight. I offered them a choice. They chose clarity over politics." Mr. Harrison turned to Ivan. "You really want to work with someone who abandons her company mid-deal?" I smiled, sharp, quiet, composed. I don't abandon ships, I said. I rebuild them without the ones who drilled the holes. There was a moment of silence. Then Ivan looked at his legal team. We'll proceed with dual review, he said, and I want Julie's proposal considered as primary. Mr. Harrison stepped back like he'd been hit. I could have ended it there. I could have taken the win quietly and left him to suffer in the tension of the room. But I didn't come just for the win. I came for the dignity they took from me. So I looked Mr. Harrison in the eye, steady and cold, and said, "One condition." Everyone froze. "I'll proceed with the joint infrastructure only if you're not involved. I don't deal with people who fire their architects mid-flight." The silence in the room grew heavy. Ivan hesitated for just a breath, then nodded. I respect that. Mr. Harrison's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw not a CEO, but a man realizing the game was no longer his to play. He left the room without a word. Outside, Berlin's streets buzzed with late spring sun and tourists crowding cafe tables. I walked toward a nearby courtyard where Ben and Maria were waiting, both holding coffees, both watching the live feed from the summit on their phones. "Heard you dropped a bomb," Maria smirked. "No bombs," I said, sitting beside them, just balance restored. Ben raised his cup to the architect. I didn't raise mine. I wasn't finished yet. But for the first time in years, I felt like my name didn't need defending because I had walked into the room they tried to shut me out of and made it mine. At 7:45 a.m., I walked into the Vanguard headquarters as the morning sun poured through the tall windows, casting long lines of light across the clean, polished floors. The space was quiet, but it wasn't cold. It hummed with a kind of calm energy, the kind that only comes from a place built with purpose. On the far wall, a new plaque had just been mounted, etched in shiny steel. It read, "Vanguard, founded by Julie Miller." Not tucked in small print, not hidden behind team credits, not erased or replaced. Just there, full, final, visible. I stood in front of it for a long moment, fingers lightly touching the surface, remembering all the times my name had been written in drafts and then removed before the meeting. All the proposals where I did the work but someone else presented the slides. All the press releases I edited that never once mentioned my contributions. They had taken so many pieces of my voice for so long, but they never really silenced me. And now I didn't need to raise my voice because the building spoke for me. Upstairs, I stepped into the boardroom. Not the cold metal kind Apex used to prefer, but one with warm wood, soft lighting, and walls that invited conversation, not control. Laura White from Eurocom sat on one side of the table, reviewing a plan with Ben. Mr. Costa was on a video call in the corner, laughing about the last soccer match in Brazil. Kenji Tanaka had sent a gift, 3 bonsai trees to place around the office, one for each continent Vanguard now supported. I sat at the head of the table, but it didn't feel like a throne. It felt like balance. That afternoon, I received a quiet notification on my phone. Sarah Harrison had resigned from her job effective immediately. No formal statement, no interviews, just a single line in the industry news. Sources say the company is undergoing a shift in leadership structure following the collapse of several major partnerships. No one asked where she went. No one really cared. An hour later, another notification came through. Mr. Harrison removed from the Apex board by unanimous vote. There was no scandal, no lawsuit, no public breakdown, just removal. A slow, quiet unraveling that mirrored exactly how they had tried to erase me. Only now, they were the ones disappearing, without sound, without a lasting mark, without anyone fighting to keep their place. And me, I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate, because this had never been about revenge. It had always been about something simpler, more important, getting back what was mine. When I signed the final combined contract later that day, a joint agreement bringing together all 3 Trident partners under one multi-region system, I didn't hesitate. I didn't think of the $1.5 billion. I didn't think of the headlines or the feeling of being proven right. I just thought of my name, Julie Miller, and how for the first time I was signing as exactly who I was. No fear, no disguise, no false ideas. I was no longer someone waiting to be recognized. I was remembered by default, because this time the foundation had my name carved into its frame. If you've ever had your name removed from a project you worked so hard for, if you've ever stayed silent while someone else got the credit, if you've ever been told to let it go when what they really meant was let yourself go, then hear this. You're not invisible, you're not replaceable, and you're not done. Some battles don't need fire to win. They need focus. They need stillness. They need time. And when the time comes, let your presence speak louder than your pain. If Julie's journey touched something in you, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or erased, don't stay silent. Like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories where the quiet ones rise, hit subscribe. We're just getting started.